Pittsburgh Steelers coach Mike Tomlin decided to walk away from the game as it was pretty much time for him after 19 seasons. He was 193 and 14 and 2 regular season record, but was 8 and 12 in the playoffs. Made 2 Super Bowl appearances from 2008 and 2010-2011. With the most dedicated, or perhaps the most discontent fans remaining in the bright yellow seats of Acura Curve Stadium, a deflated, frigid night, Mike Tomlin walked off the turf for the last time as the Steelers head coach just after 11 p.m. Monday. A week earlier, he pounded his chest and blew kisses at the triumphant exit, exuberantly celebrating the AFC North title in front of a Rockets crowd. A miraculous fourth quarter by quarterback Aaron Rodgers and missed Baltimore Ravens field goal attempt breath of life into Mike Tomlin's 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers. Excuse me. An opportunity to break the drought of the postseason failure. And now the hope and the fanfare were gone in the aftermath of a wild card game that ultimately snowballed into a 30-6 blowout against the Houston Texans. Tomlin wove those clumps of non-Pittsburgh Steelers players and staffers past benches and heaters, descending down the flight of stairs into the tunnel with Rodgers trailing close behind, and out of the view of the cameras, the fans calling for the dismissal as well as Rodgers' retirement. Tomlin strode several yards, ascended to the 2 flights of stairs and paused for a moment and then turned left into the locker room's antechamber, and he crossed the yellow logo on the black spelled rubberized door as he turned left to step into the spacious room rimmed wooden lockers. He passed by his own words immortalized in steely silver block letters and hanging on the black cinder block wall. The standard is the standard. Monday night, Tomlin's message was brief. He told the silent locker room that it wasn't time for talk. They reconvene and next day go from there. When you're in a single elimination tournament, is not a whole lot to talk about, he said in a post-game news conference. You want to go home. No one listened to his message in the locker room, anticipated he would come less than 24 hours later. But one answer to Tomlin's post-game news conference that gave some on the inside of inkling of Tomlin's next steps, according to multiple sources. And 2 years ago, after a wildcard loss to Buffalo, a defiant Tomlin walked away from the lectern in the middle of the question about his future. He didn't want to entertain the idea that he wouldn't be the coach of the Steelers the next season. But posed with a similar question after Monday night's wildcard loss, Tomlin remained seated and gave a measured response. I'm not even at the mindset as I sit here tonight. He said, I'm more in the mindset of what transpired in the stadium and will certainly do what we did and didn't do. Not a big picture mentality as I sit here tonight. And to some who know the 53-year-old's best, that non-answer foreshadowed what would become the official next day, and had never gotten an answer of what showed the future promise. One former Steelers player, he told ESPN, after fulfilling the media obligations, Tomlin exited through the door connected to the media compound and to amazing training rooms, bathrooms, and makeshift offices, and eventually the locker room. There he found was entirely an empty room except for one player, defensive captain Cam Hayward. Shortly after 5:30 next morning, Tomlin pulled into the Steelers' practice facility in his light blue Ford Bronco. Though that he knew that today it would end unlike any in his career. It was always did, with an early morning arrival. Amongst the meetings scheduled as Tomlin's usual mid-morning season debrief with the team, Art Rooney, the 73-year-old executive, anticipated Tomlin would outline his vision for how he and the franchise would move forward together. But Tomlin saw something different for the organization in the future that didn't include him. Though it wasn't the conversation Rooney anticipated having, he wasn't surprised that Tomlin came to that decision. I was shocked, but I wasn't expecting that decision yesterday either, Rooney said Wednesday. And when you get to the stage of your career, obviously, he mentioned it himself, and he was nearer to the end in the beginning, and so you can see that coming. And I was certainly willing to take another run at it next year with Mike, and that was what I was expecting to talk about yesterday. But obviously, it went in a different direction. The meeting with Rooney lasted no more than 20 minutes, and it concluded several hours before Tomlin was scheduled to meet with the team. By noon, a few select knew that Tomlin would deliver the news to the players during the 2 p.m. meeting, including Tomlin's family, Rooney, and general manager Omar Khan. Before the meeting, Tomlin huddled with a spokesperson, Bert Latin, to go over particulars, and the team released statements from Rooney and Tomlin after the meeting. With the franchise knowingly shifting under their feet, those in the building continued with business as usual, and the scouting department held meetings to sort through candidates for future contracts. Staffers drifted in and out of the cafeteria for lunch, and players trickled for their end of season physicals to clear out their lockers. Then they grabbed the giant trash bag from the equipment room and shifted through the contents of the season. Rodgers still publicly not committal about his future, but sorted through mementos of his Pittsburgh year at his corner locker, grimming at the red personal cards and notes. Several staffers and media members and players approached him with impromptu staggered receiving line with simple words of appreciation, of others with jerseys and Sharpie and a request. The room was subdued in a way that it was an after unceremonious and unsatisfying end to the season, but with 7 straight postseason losses, 6 of them in the wild card round, it wasn't unfamiliar territory. A handful of players spoke with reporters discussing the wild card loss and their own personal growth over the season and evaluated Tomlin as their leader. One of the best coaches I've ever played with, Pat Fryermuth, said, and in my opinion, his message hasn't gotten stale, and I believed in him. And as the players was talking about giving their Game of Thrones farewell, a coach who nearly 2 decades emphasized routine was following his own, giving no indication that he was about to shock the NFL world inside the modest team meeting locker room. He calmly walked to the door at 2 p.m. Tuesday, and after the typical grab of a Steelers hat and long-sleeve shirt, the room was about 100 deep among players, coaches, support, and personal staff. In front of go walls, a projector, whiteboard and projector, Tomlin delivered well-worn themes about the season that ended abruptly, an incredible effort and dedication his team showed him, and discussed consequences and being accountable. But Tomlin couldn't hide his tail for long, and his delivery slightly more subdued than his normal animated self. According to 2 team sources in the locker room, the players and coaches had no idea the detour Tomlin was about to take. Tomlin was an exceptional wordsmith and byproduct of his mother's thirst for education while raising him in Hampton, Virginia, most notably an obsession with a World Book Encyclopedia. So it's no surprise Tomlin's lines punctuated people in the locker room in different ways with different relocations. You deserve better, and right now I can't deliver. One high-ranking team source recalled Tomlin saying, "Someone else has to move the franchise forward," another team source remembered. And another simply said, "It's the best that I stepped down." One coaching source recalled Tomlin referencing the Game of Thrones series to highlight the cutthroat nature of coaching and winning the NFL. So, yeah, Mike Tomlin pretty much decided to call it, to walk away and call it quits on the, but in a really good conversation to let the players know, the coaches and the personal staff know on his end what was the entail and why he decided to just let it go after 19 seasons. And pretty much my thoughts is this. It was a long, hard career from the moment he took over back in 2007, 2008. You went to multiple Super Bowls. You went to with different staff and different teammates. You played with, you had cornerbacks such as Brian McFadden, Ryan Clark, Troy Polamalu, Lawrence Timmons, James Harrison, Brett Kiesel, and so on and so forth with Big Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, Hines Ward, and et cetera, et cetera. But then to go from that and to continue to remain relevant with like 4 to 5 different quarterback changes and not really had the reliable quarterback to really move forward to advance past the wild card round and 7 straight postseason losses. He went into a spiraling direction of what Marvin Lewis had with the Cincinnati Bengals, where you went through a carousel of player changes, different receivers, defensive linemen, Mike and inside linebackers, and then several different quarterbacks have several controversial statements, and so on and so forth. But with the Steelers, they respected Mike Tomlin, and that was the difference in that they respected Tomlin, they respected his acumen, they respected his football mind because he's a football-minded coach, and they really appreciate what he had brought to the table. You can tell from players such as T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward, who was still remaining in that locker room, they really appreciate what Tomlin brought, Pat Freiermuth, etc., etc. And now, since he's gone, who's going to take over that mantle in that office? Who's going to really be that guy that's going to really push the team and move the team forward? You never know. Who knows what's going to happen? You know, in the NFL, there's always a recycling of coaches. There's always a recycling of coaches. So you have that sort of feeling. You have that sort of a bite and grip. You just never know who's going to come in that building and really bring some inspiration and really figure out a way to just get over this hump of winning a wild card game or winning a playoff game since 2016. Because 2016 was the last time that they won a home playoff game, let alone just won a wild card game. And it's been pretty much about over 10 years. So at the end of the day, we'll see who comes in and fills in that role and fills in that position. But it's a long, hard-fought battle that this team is pretty much occupied, and a lot of Hall of Fame caliber players, and such as Kurt Warner, also in the media spoke about this too. And it puts the spotlight on just Art Rooney and pretty much the rest of that front office of what they're gonna do and their decision of what they're gonna do at the end of the day. So yeah, Mike Tomlin is gonna find a coaching job somewhere, but maybe not this year. I think they said he was gonna take some time away from the game and really focus on family and his own personal endeavors and personal life, which are nothing but the best of luck in that regards. But for now, who's gonna fill in that coaching spot? We never know. You don't know what's gonna happen moving forward, and as players, as they cleared out their loggers and really gonna go to the end of the season, the off season, knowing that they're gonna have to deal with another coach. So we'll see how that plays and tackles and unfolds. Now, some more news I wanted to talk about real quick, guys, and that is Kevin Patoullo. So the Eagles' Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman offer a few details of the ouster of Kevin Patoullo and who they want as the new OC. The Eagles need a new offensive coordinator, as for most fans and probably some players, and the change from Kevin Patoullo was inevitable long before Philadelphia made the move this week. In the wake of the playoff loss, there's help wanting the sign of a new boss on the offense, one loaded with elite talent such as Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith. They fell way short of the Eagles failed in their bid to win the consecutive Super Bowl titles. Coach Nick Sirianni and General Manager Howie Roseman were vague on details Thursday about why they waited to the end of the season to make the move. The Eagles ranked 24th in yards per game, 19th in points per game, and less clear about what they wanted out of their new coordinator. You're looking to continue to evolve as an offense, and I'm looking to bring in the guy that's going to best us and help us do that. Sirianni said, I think there are many different ways to be successful on offense, and everybody has a different styles. Everybody has different players, and there's many different ways to be successful. The Eagles have plenty of credible candidates to choose from, everyone from Josh McCown and Cam Turner to former NFL coaches like Brian Dable, Mike McDaniel, and Cliff Kingsbury. The new OC could have to complete anatomy to run the offense, though collaboration has been key under Sirianni. No matter the coordinator, the Eagles expect to be contenders again after playing in 2 of their last 4 Super Bowls. Just winning an NFC title doesn't cut it these days in Philly. And if the end doesn't end with a confetti falling on their heads, I don't feel like it's good enough, Roseman said. I don't know what they're not going to win a Super Bowl every year. I think I know from a broad perspective, but I believe they can. I go into every offseason thinking that we're going to do whatever it takes to win a Super Bowl. Because Johnson call it quits. 2-time All-Pro offensive tackle Lane Johnson has built a Hall of Fame level career, won 2 Super Bowls since the Eagles made him in the 2013 first round pick. Retirement talk is not as a hot topic for most of the season. Johnson turns 36 in May and did not play after week 11 because of a foot injury. He did not talk to me this week when the Eagles cleaned out their lockers. Roseman kept private his conversation with Johnson about retirement. Johnson reworked his contract last May and is signed through 2027. You're talking about a Hall of Fame career who has been a huge part of any of our success that we had. And when you watch him play, he's still at the elite level, Roseman said. Brown may still call Philly home, and Brown is likely to stay put. While he isn't shy about airing out his grievances, the wide receivers often worth the distractions because of his production, just not this season. Brown has 78 receptions, down from 106 in 2023 for 1,003 yards. He had 1,496 yards and only 5 100-yard games. And of course, that dip in production resulted from how he was used in Patullo's offense. The changes are one reason why the Eagles are in no rush to give up on a 28-year-old star, along with $43 million dead salary cap hit they took if Brown wasn't on the roster. It'd be hard to find great players in the NFL, and AJ's a great player, Roseman said. I think from my perspective, that's why we're going out and looking for when we go out there in free agency and the draft to try to find great players who love football, and he's that guy, and I think that would be my answer. Eagles could have a larger coaching shakeup as special teams coach Michael Clay in a virtual interview Thursday for the same job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Sirianni hasn't ruled out Patoullo staying on the staff in a different role. I know Kevin is going to have other opportunities. Obviously, always wants for the best for Kevin and for his family. So we'll see how it plays out, Sirianni said. Okay, so here is what I got to say about this. So there could be some good viable candidates for the Eagles, like Josh McCown, Cam Turner, and Mike McDaniel. Not Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think he will fit with that roster, in my opinion. I don't think Cliff Kingsbury will fit with that roster, but I think Mike McDaniel and Cam Turner and Josh McCown could be a viable option. The reason why I say that is because I believe they know the offensive style of the game, and I feel like they could bring something to the Philadelphia Eagles that they haven't had. And our offense wouldn't be so predictable and wouldn't be so confidentiality purposes. I feel like their offense would actually flourish and nourish under a new leadership, and I feel like Jalen Hurts would elevate his game more, and Saquon Barkley would actually get opportunities to run the ball more times than not. It wouldn't just be simple, just inside runs or inside draws or lining up in the pistol or lining up in the shotgun and handoff. No, it would actually be under the center, and he would actually get, a rush from the line and open up lanes and open up holes. And I feel like Jalen Hurts, instead of doing a whole lot of play action, would do in the midway point, and do less play action. And at the same time, he would put it together. He put it together in so much effort that it would be apropos. I just think that they didn't use a lot of his legs. They didn't use a lot of his legs last season, and they didn't really use Saquon Barkley in the right way. And a lot of people want to blame Jalen Hurts because of his, I guess, the eye level and not reading defense. But if you just saw what I just saw there, they were ranked below in yards and points per game in the comparison to the last couple seasons, even the year last year when they won the Super Bowl. They averaged more points the years that was in the Super Bowl and winning it, because their offensive play calling was under different leadership, like Shane Steichen, who was an effective coach and designed RPOs, and then Kellen Moore, who earlier on in the year they kind of started off a bit slower, but then as the season went on and as he started to get it in tune with with the play style of their elite stars, he got a lot better and he got a lot more familiarized with that core. And also their defense was ranked in the top 5 in sacks, forced fumbles, and turnovers per game. So that pretty much is why they were ranked so high in every other category. Now, in my eyes, whoever they get as the new OC and also the new special teams coach, because their special teams was not all that great. Jake Elliott was missing. He was like 23 of 34, which is not that particularly that great. And their special teams, as far as coverage, was not that strong either in previous other seasons. So that's another reason why they need to go and find a different coaching staff. But I still think they need to really trade A.J. Brown, because he's been nothing but a problem, nothing but a distraction. And there was at least 3 to 4 games where he's had at least 3 or more drop passes. Similar thing with Devontae Smith. There was a couple of times he had some drop passes, but none of the staff, and also none of the media and Eagles fans are willing to call that out, and none of the actual YouTubers are going to call this thing out either. But yeah, that's just my thoughts about the latest coaching news from Mike Tomlin, and of course the coordinators from Kevin Patoullo getting fired by the Philadelphia Eagles and Hy Roseman. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Tell me what you guys think down in the comment section. I am out. Thank you all for liking, watching, and sharing and subscribing. I will see y'all and catch y'all in the next one. Peace.